Welcome to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com. We've got a lot to go through today. And there is, of course, a lot of breaking news, breaking by the second almost. This is the usual case as we run up to election day or election week or election months, whatever the latest gambit is from the Associated Press, and all those who claim that they're not going to make election night calls. Meanwhile, we have a debate that's about 24 hours away. We'll be doing live coverage here on the run-up to that debate on Real America's Voice tomorrow evening, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, with the debate from 9. And then Governor Eric Greitens and myself will be doing a live wrap of the debate, how it went, if it happens at all. And one of the reasons I say that is because the way this Hunter Biden laptop, these Bevan Cooney emails, and loads of other things, by the way, which are circling around the former vice president, the way those things are going, well, I wouldn't be particularly surprised if Joe Biden decides, I've got the COVID, I can't turn up for the debate, or whatever other reason they might concoct. I've got a very honourable guest, especially honourable in my estimation, in studio with us here today. Bernie Kerik is, as you will know him, the former New York Police Commissioner, and a whole lot of other august positions that Bernie has held over the course of his lifetime in law enforcement. But for me, well, he's a commander of the British Empire, and that ranks above everything. Bernie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm really grateful to have you here, not least because there's so much chatter going on about, and you could expect that to be the case. There is a lot of euphemism out there about what is on these hard drives, what these images might be, what the emails might be. And I understand from people that there's some frustration out there as well. Why can't we see it all? Why don't you just upload it to 4chan? Why can't we just have, the world going through this stuff? So I want to start off there. The way I understand it, and I'm nowhere near as privy to a lot of the information as you are, but correct me if I'm wrong, the way I understand it, this isn't just a case of there's a bunch of files that you can dump somewhere, right? This is information that's scattered, that's complicated, and a lot that is incredibly precarious in terms of putting it out there.
Right. So what we have is we have a hard drive that was taken from Hunter Biden's original computer, his Apple MacBook Pro. That MacBook was seized by the FBI. They gave him a subpoena for it. He gave it, he gave it to a vendor. The vendor gave it to the FBI. And that was back on December 9th. The vendor made 4 hard drives as a result before he gave it to the FBI. We were given one of those hard drives. In that hard drive, and I'm just summing up numbers here, there's just under 28,000 images. I think 27,847, if my memory's right. There are probably 60 to 80,000 emails, text messages, and other documents that are on the hard drive. And these came from Hunter Biden's cell phone. You know, when you're on your computer, you can text message from the computer using iMessage. His iMessage account was on there. So we have the text messages, we have his emails, and we have these images. And that's what the mayor and I and an investigative team have been going through for the last week and a half, I guess. I've spent 4 days scouring through this thing. We're not even halfway through the drive itself. There's a lot more to look at. During the course of reviewing what's on the hard drive, we were obviously, the mayor was interested in the Ukraine. That's what brought it to the vendor's attention. That's why he called the FBI initially. He saw things on there from the Ukraine, especially during the impeachment hearings. That was, I guess that was the mayor's primary interest. What came to light as a result are a number of emails and text messages relating to financial transactions, deals that Hunter made with foreign governments, and that basically go back to Joe Biden. And then there's the photos and some other things that relate to his family. During the course of reviewing that, the mayor and I both came to the agreement that there was a child endangerment issue, which by law should be reported to the authorities. And as you know, I guess the day before yesterday in the morning, we drove down to the Newcastle police, the county police in Delaware, and we made a criminal referral, giving them a bunch of evidence that we seized from the computer, from the hard drive, and asked for an investigation and for them to look at it.
And from there, I understand they then made a further referral.
Well, to our understanding, the Newcastle County Police then gave it to the State Attorney General's office. And as of last night, we heard that the State Attorney General's office has now given that evidence to the FBI.
But the FBI already had this.
They had the original copy, yes.
So they've been giving it again.
Twice.
Right. We're going to go to a quick break now, but Bernie, we want to get into that when we come back, is what you have seen on this. I understand that there are images that are graphic in nature. We'll be very sensitive when we talk about this sort of thing, and very sensitive to the people who may have been victims of what's happened as a result of this behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, I can't stress to you enough the sensitivity of this, and how much I know that Mayor Giuliani and Bernie Kerik here is being extra judicious and extra cautious about the way this is all handled. We'll get into more of that when we return here on the National Pulse after this short break. Apparently there is something in the Washington, D.C. lexicon called a kickback account. I never heard of that before today, really, which just shows you that I'm missing on so many kickbacks. But apparently kickback accounts are quite regular for political figures and people in the D.C. circuit. We're going to be looking into whether or not Joe Biden or anybody attached to Joe Biden has had one of these kickback accounts over the last 47 years he spent in Washington, D.C. I want the audience to understand on this that the information that I'm getting and relaying to you is almost real time. That is to say that we do our uttermost due diligence up until the point where it becomes impossible, for many reasons. One is to not get scooped by other reporters, but also to bring you the information that you need as the voting public that will inform your votes. That is what a democracy is about. That is what this republic is built on, is the free and open communication of information for you, because it's your life at risk here. It's your taxes on the line here. It's your sons and daughters being sent off to battlefields all around the world. And I want you to understand that the people who are involved with going through, whether it's the Cooney emails, the Bevan Cooney emails, whether it's the hard drive and the laptop from hell, are doing their uttermost to expedite this process, but in a responsible way. My guest here is Bernie Kerik, former New York Police Commissioner and Commander of the British Empire. I didn't know that until we sat down here. Can I ask you about that very quickly?
In February of 2002, Mayor Giuliani and I were honored by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace. I was presented with the CBE, Commander of the British Empire. The mayor was honored with a honorary knighthood. And I have to tell you, for me, I've been to 1,000 ceremonies, right? Thousands of ceremonies, over the course of my career. It was probably the top three, one of the top three, to stand there with Her Majesty, to have a 5-minute conversation with her privately about my life, about 9/11, about what we did for the British people in the aftermath of the attacks on the World Trade Center, and walk out of there. It was for me. It was probably one of the greatest honors of my lifetime.
It's very warming for me as a Brit to hear that, because of course most of us look to the future of our monarchy, and we see the Meghan Markles and all this nonsense that's happening around those two. But we even look to the heir, Prince Charles, and think, oh my goodness, this is an enduring institution that is about to be trashed by cultural Marxists. I mean, Charles talks to his plants. He's all Green New Deal. It's appalling.
But Raheem, I'll tell you something. I have to get this out.
Yeah.
This is a woman that was the queen for longer than I had been living.
Right.
So to stand there with her, knowing the history she's had, her work with the great leaders of the world, it was great.
You were one step removed from Sir Winston Churchill in that regard.
Exactly.
It's incredible. Right, I want to get back to this data in this laptop. Look, there's obviously going to be much more information that people will be privy to over the next couple of days and week or so. But I'm hearing rumblings now from the Democrat side that they think that this is not fair game, that this shouldn't be on the table, that Hunter Biden shouldn't be mentioned, and the Democrats actually intend to throw up their hands and say, whether it's Joe Biden at the debate or whether he doesn't turn up to debate, to say, Donald Trump is playing dirty tricks. We've already heard foreign disinformation. Well, let me ask you that up front. Did you get this from a foreign source? No. Listen, and I said this morning in another interview, I'm 1,000% positive this stuff is authentic, number one. Number two, if you look back at Donald Trump in 2016 and the Russian collusion stuff and the Steele dossier, what they accused Donald Trump of makes the Biden family look like John Gotti and Al Capone combined. And nobody's looking at it. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to see it. I think it's absurd. This whole push, Russian disinformation. The Russian disinformation is Adam Schiff. I personally think he is a Russian asset. And I think he controls the Iron Curtain. And the Iron Curtain is the CNNs,
and the MSNBC and ABC and NBC and CBS and Twitter and Facebook. They are the Iron Curtain that is preventing the rest of the United States of America and the world from seeing reality.
So what does reality look like? I mean, without being too explicit here, we've been told about underage girls on this drive and images. I mean, have you verified that personally?
I've seen the photos. There's a number of photos of young women. There's concerning photos that the mayor and I were concerned with. And there's emails and text messages relating to one or some of them both by Hunter Biden and his family that, in my opinion, raises the question to, refer this to the authorities for child endangerment. And there is a state reporting requirement in Delaware that if you come in contact with this or have a suspicion of it, you are mandated to report it to authorities. And as soon as we saw this, that's what we did.
What happens if you are a doctor like Jill Biden and you know this is going on? You're supposed to lose your license if you don't report something like that.
It's mandated. It's a state law. It's a state law. In fact, the law in Delaware is more stringent than many other states. In most states, it's the public servants have an obligation. In Delaware, it's anyone that has the suspicion of.
We'll continue the conversation in just a moment. Bernie, thank you for being here and walking us through all of this. I know it's incredibly frustrating sometimes when we can't see everything up front for ourselves. Believe me, there are things that you don't want to see on this. We'll be back with more with Bernie Kerik here on the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the National Pulse. I want to say a great big thank you to everybody who joined us last night for our members' town hall. If you're not aware, the National Pulse exists because of our readers and because of our supporters. We don't have any big corporate contracts. We don't solicit from big money donors. You can go to fundrealnews.com and sign up to be a supporter. You get all sorts of benefits, including a monthly private town hall with myself, with Natalie Winters and the rest of the team, at the National Pulse. We did it last night with our supporters, and it was just a pleasure to be with you all, to talk to you all, to answer your questions, to walk through how the site operates, what our traffic numbers are like, the detail, the nitty-gritty behind how these things run. And I've got to tell you, we've been running that site now for 10 months. And we're well on course. Last month we got 5.5 million visits to the site. This month is looking like it's more going to be like 6 million, which is just incredible numbers. And, you know, all credit to the team and to Natalie and all the scoops for that. And credit to our friends over at the aggregators, the Citizen Free Presses, the Revolver.Newses, the Bongino Reports, all of the What Fingers, all of these great aggregators out there who have picked up where Matt Drudge has left off. And speaking of what Matt Drudge is left off, very, very few links or anything, certainly no big siren that we're expected to see on the Drudge Report, or have expected to see that for decades on major stories like this. Bernie, does Matt Drudge fall within the Iron Curtain now?
I think so. I mean, all you have to do is look at the site. I used to watch the site. You know, I don't know, I referred to the site 10 times a day, probably like you and many others. I may look at it now, I don't know, once a week.
Yeah, his numbers show that.
I barely look at it anymore because it's so one-sided. The bottom line is there is a major problem with censorship. There's a major problem with the First Amendment in this country. It's a part of that socialist movement that's that's being pushed inside Congress and out. And you have Facebook and Twitter and all these media organizations that's a part of it.
And you have Republicans who go along with a lot of this stuff as well.
They either go along with it or they don't have the courage to fess up and they ignore it. Yeah. They intentionally ignore it because they don't have the courage to call it what it is. And that is why everybody hates Donald Trump. Right. They hate Donald Trump. We always talk about transparency. We want transparency in government. Well, I got news for you. You don't have a more transparent president. He is the most transparent president we've ever had. Probably overly transparent.
Right, I was going to say that.
Too transparent at times. But the bottom line is, you don't have to worry about what he's doing, he will tell you. Right. You don't have to worry about what he's thinking, he will tell you. Good, bad, or indifferent. At the end of the day, they are trying to silence that.
It's interesting that you raise that because we're often told, oh, he's this bumbling oaf who blurts things out, and therefore, you don't really want somebody that unpresidential as the president. But on the other side, he's a genius, secretive colluder, and it can't be both of those things, right?
Yeah, no, it's, you know what, that's the left, that's the Democrats, they're desperate. And in desperate times, you say foolish things. But the thing that scares me, the thing that frightens me, and should frighten every American, is this attempt by the left to silence reality. And the stuff that's going on right now, forget the laptop, forget it. Let's look at the other emails that's out there. Let's look at what Congress found with regard to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Let's look at Joe Biden's video of him in the middle of an extortion over $1 billion grant for the Ukraine. That's reality. That stuff is reality, and the left is ignoring it. And if it was anybody else, you'd already be in handcuffs, you'd be prosecuted and sitting in prison. Why is it that Joe Biden and his family and the Clintons, they're exempt from the law? Why? How could that be? And I think that's a concern to every American in this country.
So I'd never heard of this Kickback account thing before. It's just not something that's ever come across my radar. And then somebody calls me up this morning and is like, hey, you got to look for where they rest their money.
Well, I know, I can tell you based on what I've seen, and this is directly out of an email, the first person I'd be looking at in the Biden family is James Biden, because there's a text message from James Biden to Hunter saying, I just spoke to your father. He's talking to O being the president, and this could be the best 2 days in our entire life, for our career, something like that. James was involved in a number of these deals, whether it was Iraq or China or wherever, somebody should be looking at him and where he's traveling to, because wherever he's traveling to or has been traveling, I promise you there's a count somewhere.
Okay, I want the audience to pay very close attention to what Bernie is saying here, because this is news, right? And it's news before you'll get it anywhere else. Pay attention to this. So somewhere, let's just say that James Biden purchased a property in the US Virgin Islands, on Water Island, in the US Virgin Islands, in 2005. Would that go some way to explain, or could that go some way to explaining, A, where they were doing some of their business, where they were putting some of their business, and B, because I checked this out before the show, why in about, and you can do it for yourselves, by the way, the audience, why the fact checkers went to such great lengths earlier this year to do fact check Joe Biden never had anything to do with the Virgin Islands. And then at the bottom of the fact check is, but his brother James Biden actually had a property there between 2000, but don't worry about that.
Right. Well, listen, if you look at the emails and you read through the emails, you'll notice Joe Biden never had a deal with China, but his son did. But if you look at further in the text messages and emails, you'll see that Joe Biden was going to get 10% of the deal. Okay? It wasn't Joe Biden's deal, it was Hunter's. But you know what? He was the vice president. He was the former vice president. It all relates to influence that Joe Biden could perform for his son. Anybody else would be in prison. Anybody else would be in prison.
Is this why Obama really didn't back Biden? He knew that this was all in Joe Biden's repertoire?
Well, the intelligence community knew. The intelligence community said there were problems. We now know that from Congress, from congressional hearings.
Let's come back to that in just a second. We've got to break. Bernie Kerik, just amazing information. One of the few people who have had eyes on all of this information that's going to drop in the next coming days. We'll be back with more after this short break. Welcome back to the National Pulse. We're going to break some news over the course of the next couple of days, weeks. I want to get into something now that the Chief of Staff in the White House, Mark Meadows, said earlier on today, which will be, I guess, disturbing to some people, but it is an injection of realism when you think about the scale of the information that's just kind of recently been handed over whether it's Mayor Giuliani, whether it's Bernie Kerik, whether it's their whole team, whoever has eyes on this right now, it is going to take a long time to get through everything. And not least because people have pseudonyms, they have nicknames, they have acronyms for different organizations that they work with. You have to piece different pieces of the puzzle together, whether it's, a company in Hong Kong or a company in China or a company in Ukraine, who's involved with that. Okay, this stuff takes time. So Bernie, I'm really grateful for you being here with us. You told us about the scale of this thing and just how long. I wonder what you think about Mark Meadows' comments that actually we may not get a special investigator on this until after the election.
Well, there is an election in 13, 14 days, so they're extremely busy right now. But I think at some point in time, this is an investigation that mandates an outside prosecutor. And the reason I say that is because you've had the FBI sit on it for some 8-9 months. A lot of it has to do with information that came out during the impeachment hearing. There's a lot of material that we haven't seen yet. There's a lot of material that's going to corroborate what we have in the hard drive. And the reality is we haven't gotten through probably half the hard drive. So there's a lot of work to be done. Hopefully the FBI is in a position now where they're focused on this and they're moving forward. But that being said, the scale and scope of an investigation like this is enormous because you're dealing with the Ukraine, China, Kazakhstan, you name it. They were all, everywhere that Hunter Biden showed up, there was a business deal, and every one of those business deals in some way bounced back to his father. There's a lot of work to be done, so it's going to take a while. And I understand the chief of staff's, I understand his comments. Unfortunately, there's a lot of this that could have been done already and just wasn't. But I think that's the president's issue. He'll have to deal with it.
When you say that's the president's issue, you mean the head of the FBI is the president's issue?
I think there's two issues. The head of the FBI, when did he become aware of it? Did he notify the Attorney General? If I was the president and the chief law enforcement executive of this country, I would have assumed that the Attorney General would have told me already. But I can tell you this, in working with Rudy Giuliani as the mayor of New York City, if we had something like this in the NYPD, and for some political reason, I decided to hold on to it, and Rudy found out 7 months later that I had it, I promise you, there would have been one meeting in which I advised him that I had it, and I didn't do what I should have done with it. The reason it wouldn't have made any difference. I would have walked out, went back to my office, cleaned out my office, and left, because he would have fired me. I'm 100% positive he would have fired me. So I think this is stuff that the president has to look at.
A lot of people will balk at the idea of firing an FBI director this close to an election in the political optics of it, right? But as you say, the rules are the rules, and if you're not abiding by the rules, I mean, effectively that would be a way for Chris Wray or whoever else was aware of this and not doing anything about it to tip their fingers on the scales of the election. This isn't something that we haven't seen from the high-ups in the FBI before, right?
Well, what we have seen is, false testimony. What we have seen is lying under oath. And these are the senior members of the FBI. We've seen suborning perjury. We've seen suppressing evidence. We've seen a lot of that. This appears to be more of the same. Hopefully, for some God unknown reason, Chris Wray has a reason why this was held for 7 months, 8 months. I'm not that confident.
You could come back to say something like, well, there were so many other people that were involved in this and we were widening the net and we didn't want to give it away, and
whatever.
Is that, yeah, there's a possibility. Look, I'm trying to see it from their perspective, right? I'm trying to be fair about this, but it's very hard to do, as you say, as you know.
Yeah, but Raheem, keep this in mind. As somebody that was targeted by the United States government, I can tell you, when they want to investigate, when they want to take action, it's immediate, it's swift. And most times, many times, it's wrong. In many cases, it's wrong. However, they don't give a damn. They just do it. Here, this is stuff that should have been done. Overwhelming criminality, substantiated criminality. When you look at this, in addition to other things that's already come out in Congress, plus Joe Biden's own words, no investigation? Odd.
Should the American public have confidence in the institutional FBI?
The American people should have confidence in the rank and file of the FBI. I know them and I know it well. It's like the men and women in law enforcement around the country. They go out every day and do a job nobody else would do. They wouldn't have the courage to do. They put their lives on the line to do it. That's what the men and women in the FBI do. I'm not worried about the rank and file. I'm worried about the people at the top. I'm worried about an institutional culture that has grown into a political culture that should not be, not within the FBI. And I think, as I mentioned this morning to Steve Bannon, you know what? It's time for a cop to take over the FBI. They should take somebody like Tom Homan, who used to run ICE, put him in charge of the FBI. I promise you, no investigation will get politicized. No investigation will be discarded.
It's a really interesting recommendation, Bernie. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
We've got another break to go to. Really grateful to have Bernie Kerik and all this insight about what exactly we're talking about, what we're looking at. Because here's the thing. Bernie talked about the Iron Curtain, talked about the MSNBCs, the CNNs, the CNBCs, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Go and look at a paper. Don't buy one. Go and look at one in your local store. Is this story anywhere near the front pages? They're burying it, but we won't. Stick around. We'll be right back. What if I told you that I just spoke with somebody who was in rehab with Hunter Biden, and that somebody had particularly important information that they wanted to bring forward about all of this? I'm just speculating. What if I told you that? Stick around. over the course of this week. You're going to want to find out more as we get to learn about it and drill down into the details that are going to emerge of what is turning out to be not just a crime family, but a crime syndicate. The Bidens seem very, very adept at doing what they've done over the past 4 decades plus, which is fleecing people, fleecing the taxpayer, fleecing their business partners, fleecing each other. Remember, 10% off the top for the big guy. A lot of people are wondering, how much has Joe Biden actually been using his drug addict son? I want to ask you that question, Bernie, because I know Mayor Giuliani mentioned to me that there was one of the messages or emails on the device that said, from Hunter Biden, that said that his father had put a bullseye on his back, had painted a target on his back?
Had painted a target on his back, that he had used him to take care of the family for the past 30 years, that his father had demanded 50% of the take. And that text, if I'm not mistaken, was from Hunter to his sister in a conversation. That being said, seems pretty straightforward to his sister. So, but this is stuff that's that's a family issue. I want to stress, as insane as that computer is, as depraved as Hunter Biden is in a number of different categories. My bigger concern for this country is this isn't about Hunter Biden. This is about Joe Biden. This is about somebody that is more severely compromised to be the president of the United States than probably anyone that's ever been in that position or trying to be in that position. And I think the American people have to see that. They have to understand it, which kills me, because the mainstream media will not report on it. They're ignoring it. They're hiding it. They're suppressing it. They're doing exactly what the Justice Department and the FBI have done in a number of these investigations, which should not happen. Hopefully, in the end, the American people, they get it. They understand it. All you have to do is do some of your own research. Just do your own research. Do your own looking and reading. Get beyond the opening page of the New York Times. Take a look around. This isn't brain surgery. This is pretty simplistic stuff, and the evidence is out there, and it's coming. And I can promise you, whether it's more of the hard drive that we expose, or whether it's Cooney's emails, or whether it's these other people that are now, I think we now have 3 or 4 anonymous sources that have come forward in the last 2 days, who want to talk to people about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's criminal conduct. This is only the beginning. It's going to get far worse.
And with 13 days to go, that's an awful lot of information to try and get through and get out in that time frame. I want to make sure I get your reaction to this as well. You talk about it being about Joe Biden. I agree with you. Hunter, for all the horrible and terrible things that there are that exist that he's done, is a product of what his father has created, the life his father's created for him and expected out of him. But what should firstly, how much do you think the president is aware of some of these details, and what should he be going for in the debate tomorrow night?
I think a couple of things has to happen. For one, get back to your question. How much does he know? He's being briefed on some of this, not all of it. And like I said, we're only less than halfway through. But there's other things out there that he's become aware of over the last several days. So I'm sure that's in his mind, in the back of his mind. I think in the debate, he has to focus on 2 things. He's got to tell the American people what he's done and what he intends to do. His accomplishments are unparalleled by any president, probably the last 3 presidents combined, when you look at his overall accomplishments, whether it's unemployment for blacks or Latinos or women or whatever, whether it's a 400% increase in small black business ownership, moving the embassy to Jerusalem when 4 other presidents swore they were going to do it before they got elected and didn't have the courage to do so. These are all things that Donald Trump said he was going to do. He got into office and he did it. And there's probably 150 things that he has accomplished and done unparalleled to any other president. He's got to get that out. He's got to talk about it. Then he has to talk about what he's going to do in the future. If he has the opportunity, because I don't think the media is going to do it, if he has the opportunity, he has to ask Joe Biden specifics. Ask him, what about the 10% cut that your son and you talked about? What about the things that's on the hard drive? What about the things that Senator Johnson has talked about, is talking about today? These are things I know the president's aware of. I don't think the media is going to, I found it comical almost, stunning but comical, that the election commission is, the debate commission is going to put a censor button where they can censor the 2 candidates from talking, stop them from talking, muting them. Really?
Do you think, they say they're only going to use that in the intros, right? For when the candidates are answering for their first 2 minutes the question, and then there's going to be crosstalk. But do you think that somebody there might go, oh, he's asking about uncomfortable questions about Hunter Biden?
He's either answering asking uncomfortable questions, or he's going to put out his own answer. I think I'd find it stunning if they don't use it for other things.
Yeah, I think that's right as well. I am
if Joe Biden shows up for the debate.
Well, what's the percentage chance that he doesn't?
Listen, the bottom line is he should be answering these questions. He should be answering these questions. And he hasn't done it so far. And we now know the FBI and the intelligence community say they're authentic.
Right.
All right. If they're authentic, then you have to answer them.
We'll see tomorrow night, the big night. So many people have cast their ballots already, but I think a lot of people will be changing their minds. What happens then? We'll be right back on the National Pulse. Just think about what we know already about the Presidential Debates Commission. Think about who we've seen on television: Frank Fahrenkopf defending the positions, all of the media, all of the blue check marks on the liberal left, jumping to Steve Scully's defense. He obviously was hacked. He wouldn't have been trying to DM Anthony Scaramucci, and even if he was trying to, he's smart enough to know how to DM someone. Oops. He's the nicest man in Washington, D.C., they said. He's fair, he's balanced, he's moderate, he doesn't take sides. He asked the president's former friend, advisor, assistant, donor, surrogate, who flipped. He asked him how he should respond to President Trump's accusations of the debates being biased. Scully, that's who he went to advice from. And so when you consider tomorrow night and the importance of it, think about who's going to be moderating. And remember, all of those tweets that disappeared, the tweets went away. She shut her account down, Kristen Welker shut the account down, and then tweets went away, and then the account came back up. Her parents, Biden and Democrat Party donors. She took her father to the Obama-Biden Christmas party in the White House. So when I say I genuinely fear that that mute button, that censor button, that kill switch may be used for more than just what they say it's going to be used for, frankly, it shouldn't be used at all. Frankly, there shouldn't even be a moderator. It should be Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and somebody rings the bell and says, go. We'll ring the bell at the end, after 2 hours. You guys have at it. You know, Americans are smart enough, as Nigel Farage always says to me, we're big enough and we're ugly enough to make our minds up for ourselves, to make our own decisions. Somebody we'll have on the show next week to discuss a lot of this is Nigel Farage. I want to make sure that you all are paying very close attention. Nigel was instrumental, of course, in the Brexit campaign in 2016. What a ways away that feels now. And then came over to the United States and appeared at some Trump rallies on the run-up to the November 2016 elections. What a time we had back then. And Bernie, I want to get back to you on this because, you know, you are a commander of the British Empire. Our fates are intertwined as nations. We are one civilization, Western civilization. And I look at this action that's taking place in your country, and a lot of people say to me, well, why do you care? What are you even doing over here? Why are you commentating on our politics? And I say, look, the fate of Western civilization is here. This is it. This is the last stand. You look at all the nonsense that we see, the transgenderism and what Pope Francis is saying out here now, and the cultural Marxism and all this hard left AOC stuff. Western civilization stands or falls on whether or not America stands or falls, and whether or not America stands or falls
is on this election.
Thank you very much.
It's on this election. You know, I want to go back to your comments on the debates, right? I think if the debate commission had the courage, I think what they should do, they should have two moderators. Take Tucker Carlson, have him as one, and then take one of these left-wing lunatics from these other stations, put them on the other end. Two commentators, two questioners that have the ability to ask them anything they want. Anything they want. Put the candidates up there, give them 2 hours, give them 3. Let them do their thing. Then let the American people make a decision. Because the problem right now is the debate commission is controlling the narrative, it's controlling the output, it's controlling everything, basically. And the candidates on both sides, they're not getting to put out their message. Let them put out their message. Let the American people make the decision for themselves. The moderators are too busy trying to tell the American public what to think, just like the rest of the mainstream media.
Bernie, I want to thank you. By the way, the audience in the live chat just cannot thank you enough. They would like you to take over my show full time.
No, that's okay. I'll pass. I like it in this chair versus that chair. I like it.
Just before I let you go, we've got about 2 minutes left here. What are the next steps for you? What do the next couple of days look like?
I think the mayor and I leave tomorrow or Friday back to New York. In the meantime, we're continually going through the information, the evidence that we have. Hopefully the FBI is doing what they have to do. I think the president, the mayor is going to brief the president on what we have found. And that way the president has a good mind, some good insight when he has a conversation with the Attorney General and the FBI director. In the meantime,
Do you know when the mayor is going to be briefing the president?
No idea.
But
no idea. So
one would hope it would be before the debate?
Probably. I would think.
Well, let's hope that. I mean, I certainly hope that the president can internalize as much of this as possible before the debate.
But I don't want the president to get stuck on this. I think the president needs to talk to the American people and remind them what he's done, what he has to do in the future to bring back the economy. You know, the economy has taken a major dip. It's still continuing that major dip because the Democratic states, the states that are run by Democrats, they won't open it up. And I think that's intentional. I think the president has to bring it to the public's attention. That's why we're not back. That's why the numbers aren't going as fast as they possibly could. We could be much further along with employment, with economic income, much further along. But there are governors out there that have intentionally kept their states closed to help to the demise of the president's battle on the economic front.
Well, it's incredible. The media says, "Oh, look at Wuhan. The economy's roaring back. People are going out clubbing, having a great time."
That's because they're opened up.
Right, and at the same time they go, "But we need to stay shut."
Right.
So again, it's this duality that doesn't make sense.
It's a
Bernie,
farce.
thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thank you.
I'm really appreciative. I know the audience is as well. We'll have you back whenever you want. Bernie Kerik there, commander of the British Empire, former New York Police Commissioner, absolute American patriot and hero, as so many of you in the live chat have been telling us. Make sure you're heading over to thenationalpulse.com. We've got a whole bunch of scoops coming. I'm working on a lot. And Max Borkus, you're going to enjoy what goes up there in the next couple of hours. See you tomorrow.